Polls have long been the barometer of public opinion, shaping elections, headlines, and sometimes outcomes. But what happens when a poll becomes the center of controversy, triggering lawsuits, accusations of fraud, and deeper questions about the integrity of elections? Today, we explore Donald Trump's lawsuit against Iowa pollster Ann Selzer and the Des Moines Register, what it means, the historical significance, and why it taps into our biggest fears about election interference. On December 16, 2024, Donald Trump filed a lawsuit against Ann Selzer, her polling firm, and the Des Moines Register. The claim? Fraud under the Iowa Consumer Fraud Act, arguing that a November 2nd poll showing Kamala Harris leading by 3 points was intentionally deceptive and designed to sway voters. In reality, Trump won Iowa by a staggering 13 points, a margin that shattered the poll's prediction. Trump alleges this was no innocent mistake, but instead an act of election-interfering fiction. For Selzer, a previously respected pollster often praised for accuracy, this accusation has rocked her career and credibility. While the odds of this lawsuit succeeding in court are slim, it highlights a broader tension between political campaigns, polling institutions, and the media. Trump's real target might not be a legal win, but reshaping the public conversation around election integrity. Polling isn't perfect. Take the infamous 1948 election. Newspapers confidently printed Dewey defeats Truman, only for Harry Truman to win. Polling errors have shaped narratives for decades, sometimes undermining public trust in elections. In today's hyper-digital age, the stakes are higher. Polling data influences media coverage, voter perception, and fundraising. A widely circulated poll showing a candidate losing can discourage turnout or shift public momentum. But what happens if that data is wrong, or worse, intentionally misleading? Trump's lawsuit isn't happening in a vacuum. It's part of a broader strategy he's long employed, attacking what he calls fake news, biased media, and untrustworthy polls. While critics see it as an intimidation tactic, supporters argue it's about holding institutions accountable. Polling isn't the only aspect of elections under scrutiny. Fraud and interference are hot-button topics, often with unseen players and invisible tactics. From disinformation campaigns to questionable polling practices, elections are far from perfect. Trump's lawsuit against Selzer adds a new layer to this debate. Can misleading polls constitute interference? While voter fraud is often painted as ballots in back alleys, manipulation of perception through polls or media may be far more insidious and harder to detect. Polls influence more than headlines. They shape minds. Psychologists call this the bandwagon effect, where people align with perceived winners. Alternatively, there's the underdog effect, where predictions of a loss mobilize a candidate's base. When a poll like Selzer's predicts Harris leading Trump by 3 points, the downstream effects are massive. Could it suppress turnout among Trump supporters? Or sway undecided voters? This is where Trump's accusations gain weight. Whether intentional or not, bad data changes elections. As we look ahead, Trump's lawsuit raises bigger questions about election integrity. If polls, media narratives, and unseen biases can influence elections, how do we ensure transparency and trust in democratic processes? While Trump's claims may or may not hold up in court, they highlight a pressing issue: Americans' growing distrust in the systems surrounding elections. Whether it's polling, media coverage, or ballot integrity, rebuilding that trust is essential. The future of elections depends on accountability, transparency, and accuracy. Trump's challenge to Selzer may be symbolic, but it forces a conversation we can't afford to ignore. Is Trump's lawsuit a genuine fight for fairness or a political strategy? Either way, it taps into a universal fear: that elections, our cornerstone of democracy, are more vulnerable than we realize. As we reflect on this case, we must ask ourselves, how much trust do we place in polls, media, and our electoral system? And what can we do to make elections more transparent and accountable?